You've got the Model Mum project.
Actually, today I'm releasing the book, that I'm part of, which is really exciting.
Great.
Yes, it's part of Her Story Summit. So in pandemic, everybody was locked, and being a creative person, I was, finding different avenues how to grow. And I saw this summit, which was all about, women's stories, and you can submit yourself to participate and be a speaker. So I was like, okay, this is the best thing. I promised my therapist I'll work on, building my voice. And I got the show I Can See Your Voice in pandemic, which is, I think, just such a beautiful blessing from the universe that it's true, when you really put intention from the inside and like out loud it, put it, in front of you, like it will come to you somehow. Yeah, and I approached this conference, even though it is much harder to be a public speaker, because being a comedian, it's a little bit easier, I think. You're half joking and it's self-deprecating, but actually being passionate about what you care without apologizing and being self-deprecating, it's you really have to have like a weight beyond that and really believe into that. So they accepted me. I did a speech with other women on Zoom, and it was just one of the most incredible things I ever done, because realizing and listening to other women's story and what they had to go through, and like other generations. I brought two of my friends with me because I wanted to give them a gift. I knew that they're also acting. And, some women of other generation would tell me, oh my God, like we would never have somebody supporting us so much, because we're just told like, okay, your value is based on like whatever you marry and that's it. Right. So it's interesting, I think there's such a healing power in storytelling. And, as part of the conference, they published a book, which I was planning to write for a long time, but I was putting it away because, writing is the next challenge, as English is my third language. But they published this book while we were kind of putting it on the board, and here it is. And I'm so
manifesting it. Yes. And I am waiting for my copy to arrive. I've ordered it, and it's called Her Story. Yes.
Yeah, it's called Her Story. So my story is just part of other women's stories, which I do like. I think it is such a diverse, world that it's interesting to listen to like everybody's story, what they have to say to you.
Yeah, everyone's story, and how you keep making it now to come into this world through your comedy, through your acting, and with some of these other projects you're doing for TV and your production company. You came to me with a lack of direction, or you said to me, there's so many projects I want to do, I'm not sure which one. And we've been able to pull them all together with a common thread and theme. And, the message that this mission that you're on, and the mission you're wanting to spread is about, expressing your voice and truth, right? And trusting your voice, owning your value is such a great motivation for other women to hear through your story, and inspires so many. And I know that you advocate for young women. I know that that's very important for you, and empowering them to really break through some boundaries and restrictions. And you shared that you want to keep doing that in the film industry too. You want to keep breaking those boundaries.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really excited. I'm putting this event. I mean, the owner of Cinema channel, Daphne Zeman, is kind of, that's her idea, but I'm coming with the comedy side. And it's all about fighting, human trafficking. And a lot of first ladies around the world, they're coming, like Queen Rania, Hillary Clinton is coming. They're confirmed. Tiffany Haddish, I know, is going to be part of the comedy. And, I brought some other, maybe the models can do it because they can break stereotypes in that sense, speak about race. And my ex also agent, Katie Ford, whose family started Ford Models. With the business and does work with organizations. So I was in New York last week and talking to her about doing something together for her with comedy, because I think it all comes back to like giving back to people who don't have the voice. It's never about like yourself or your ego.
Well, that's who you are, because you're so special, which is lovely that you think this way. I know that with the projects you're doing, you're being pushed more and more to step up and be seen in a way that you haven't been seen before. And this brings me into the Supermodels of Comedy in Vegas, this show. I mean, this stand-up show, doing comedy, when I first met you and you told me that this was your passion, what you loved doing, honestly, I couldn't have been more surprised, because here was someone who was telling me that they wanted to find their voice, and she's very comfortable standing up doing comedy. Do you feel that comedy has been part of your healing to find your truest expression of who you are?
Absolutely. When I started acting, it was great because finally I could speak. It wasn't just like a silent image on the billboard.
Right.
So that was the first step. But then I realized, even though Hollywood is, moving towards opening up different storytelling, it's still pretty much rigid. And, I didn't want to be put in a box. As much as I love, creativity, and I love doing these characters and exploring psychology. There's so much interesting things that goes into growing as a person. I felt like I needed to say diverse stories, and I couldn't find a platform to do that. So, I was doing a film with John Turturro and Woody Allen in New York and at Carlisle, and it dawned on me like, oh, Woody, does stand up on the side. And and I was looking for a play to do, which is also, not easy to like produce and put together. So, the guys, John Turturro, they're like, why don't you do stand up? It's like, okay. I didn't even think about it. That's, I think, one of my traits. I think after I act sometimes. So I wasn't even like thinking, what does it entail? I just Google, how to do stand-up comedy. And I ran into this coach, Jerry Corley, who used to work with Jay Leno and, write for a lot of night shows. And now he helps others kind of find their voice in that sense, in the sense of comedy. So we had a session, and he was first hesitant to work with a model, but then it was like, okay, like you have enough of material, we can build, the whole set. Mm-hmm. And from there, I just found it fascinating the way you can educate and reach people with deeper messages, but through laughter. Because for me, music is the first language of the universe. That's why I love music no matter what. It's my first love and passion, and I wish I could sing, but that's probably coming. But because it goes directly to your heart, no matter which language you speak, you feel it. And then I think comedy is the second one, because laughter, you're present and you can't fake laugh, either it's funny or not. Mm-hmm. So, it gives you a huge power and responsibility in so many senses. So, it's not like I need the laughter. It's more about getting through some message in a creative way.
In a creative way. Well, I've seen some of your skits, and I know that some of them are based around modeling and, being on the runway and how it feels and looks, and then how you represent that. And I think you do it in a great, fun, loving way that doesn't criticize or judge. How are the other supermodels coming on board with you? I mean, it's an art, like you said, to be a comedian. Are they natural comedians too, or are they finding it more of a stretch?
Well, it's so funny you ask that. I literally had this producer meeting with Barry Katz, who's just a brilliant, producer manager in comedy, who works with Chappelle, like any comedian you name. Wow. Yeah. Basically made their careers, and just incredible to have him part of a team on this. Mm-hmm. I kind of approached him, out of nowhere, and I can't believe he agreed to work with me on this.
It's fantastic.
And we would have these meetings every Sunday, and we came to meetings like, this is the most challenging, Eugenia, because people have a certain perception. Like, if I'm a guy and whatever, I look a certain way, and I don't have problems making jokes, but looking like you guys, how are we gonna make it? And besides, you have to train to be a comedian. So right now I'm working with a casting director, Daria Baliura, who's also very interesting person, and I think she'll do a great job in casting. But I asked a few of my friends to self-submit the tapes. We wrote 1 minute of monologues, and I was fighting with Barry about the jokes. I'm like, no, we can't write dumb model jokes. We have to write that models only do comedy because they got bored being like a professor of nuclear physics at Harvard. Like this is the only reason why, you know, it's not the other way around. They like they don't only read Vogue. So we kind of came to like a minute of monologue, and one of the first girls, her name is Jessica Lee, she's with Wilhelmina. We were watching her tape, and honestly, everybody was just shocked. She's so natural. She like brought so much. She improvised, brought her character, like her personality. So I do have really good hope that, you know, the rest of the cast will be, you know, very, very on board. And I think, you know, it's true. Like a lot of times we don't hear a lot of things about models. Like they're people, you know, they have lives, and like they have their funny stories just as part of the job, which, you know, I think there's a lot of very interesting diverse models.
Yes, there are. And I think this whole project that you've got is going to break some more barriers too, in terms of helping the traditional comedians and writers of comedy see things in a new way. So like, once again, you're breaking more boundaries here, and out of the box thinking with a very like diverse group of women, and discovering new talents, hidden talents, and also helping them with their self-value as well. I mean, the confidence to go out and do that. You know, for any of us, whether you've been modeling or not, that's a huge deal to do stand-up comedy and go and do a skit. So, you know, I think you're perhaps, without even realizing it, doing some kind of amazing coaching and motivating this group of women to do good and build their confidence and self-esteem even more. You know?
Yeah, you know, I have kids, so I always look at my daughter, and I look at the way I want her to grow up. Like I want her, you know, to be educated, to support everybody, you know, not have a cat fight and like have this perception that, okay, there's only one place for women on like writer's job, and like, you know, we all have to fight each other just to be that one. So I think it's an important message to, you know, support others, because there's enough place under the stars for all of us, and it doesn't even matter, you know?
Yeah, no, it's exactly right. It's exactly right. And as you know, we've talked about this too. Each of us have got our own purpose, our own brilliance. And it's, you know, with your daughter and seeing you as an example of what you're doing with all your projects, it's going to give her the freedom to explore those too and take them even further. You know, you're creating a legacy here. Yeah, you've just shared so much in this episode. I'm just thrilled to have you here. We could go on for hours because there's so much to cover, but I'm aware of your time, and I'm also aware of some other things that I would love us a couple of things just to cover. You know, you bring, and I keep talking about this too, it's such a rawness and vulnerability to your work and who you connect with, and you know, you speak your truth. How are you doing this on set? You know, in this last role that you had, or maybe you want to talk about a current role that you have right now, in the movies, how are you bringing this rawness and vulnerability?
You know, I think it's all about the story. It's not specifically, you just have to take your ego out of it, and, you know, always approach, I think you channel somebody else who's really living that life and like what they went through. And it's a response. It's very spiritual, I would say.
Very
You know,
spiritual.
and it's definitely much more than just like doing, you know, a job. It like changes your life sometimes, because you really dig deep into psychology and why somebody does other choices than maybe you would do. And you just have to, you know, to be honest, to, you know, to portray that and to really give somebody else's life that gratitude, you know?
Yeah. And you know, it must be their why, like you said, the choices they make, the why, and being emotionally connected to that type of way of thinking for the character. You know, I would think also comes from some of those emotional wounds that you've had in the past. And and actors are going to listen in on this and say, well, of course she does. But, you know, for those people who are not actors listening in, you know, the emotional wounds that you've experienced are going to contribute somewhat to this too. I would assume.
Sure.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's magical, like the way some roles come to you, they just come from like nowhere. And you're like, oh my God, well, this role I got it because I needed to heal that part of, you know, myself. Like literally it's
Interesting.
true.
Yeah.
And everything I got was just bizarre circumstances, and it's not A to B. There's no way, you know. I think
Mm-hmm.
you really attract something. And I do a lot of shadow work. You
Mm-hmm.
know, a lot of times our shadows, the things that we repress, they can come up in a very unhealthy way. So if we consciously, like I try to consciously like work on different shadows of mine. And if
Mm-hmm.
you write them out and like if you fall in love with them in a way, you can use them to work through all these characters, you know, because a lot of times you have to play people who are, you know, not perfect. Like nobody's
Yeah.
perfect. Like you really have to dig deep into their imperfections.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's the beauty of it. You know, we all connect by our vulnerability, not the other way around. So when we share our obstacles and, you know, things that we come through, it's relatable rather
Mm-hmm.
than like, okay, I'm this perfect, you know, person, nothing can, you know, stop me.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, and it's like, and you said, you know, no one's perfect. I believe that we are all perfect. We just have facets of ourselves that need a bit more work.
I love
That
that. Yeah,
is-
that's actually a great way to phrase it. I totally gonna use it. I love
okay, good. You could, it's all yours. I actually, when I talk to my clients, I say, think of yourself as a diamond with all these facets. You know, this beautiful diamond. You're perfect. You've got facets. You know, some are going to be flawed, so just keep polishing them,
yeah.
and at some point, you'll glow. So, it's just like you said, having the observation and connection to work on those facets, the shadow side,
Yeah.
and to do your diligence into wanting to improve that and making a choice to want to improve it rather than sitting in victim. And you know, you showed us, you know, you could have been in a victim space for a long time during that modeling, you know, during the modeling phase and as a supermodel, being somewhat beaten up emotionally bullied as well, and manipulated during that time. And yet you didn't stay in victim mode. You chose to come out of it. And then the work we did was, you know, a bit of icing on the cake from where you've been and what you've been doing because you've been working so hard, but helping you open up to new perspectives, work more on that shadow side and limiting beliefs to release it with the tools that, you know, we've used. But also that there is somewhat of a spiritual connection element with the work I do, an intuitive piece of it, and helping you to open that part of yourself as well, the intuition that you have, and learning how to use that in your work and then manifest those jobs and projects that you want, which you are doing rather successfully. So what would you say? I always ask my guests this on the podcast. What would be a nugget of wisdom that you would love to share with our listeners today? Something that is important for you to share. It can be anything.
Well, literally, I think with you, you know, I learned that life is so magical and anything is possible. And we came up right with this whole phrase, and I love the process that you use because words have such power
Mm-hmm.
and intention. And you
Thank
know,
you.
for me, it's like magic, abundance, adventure, and
Mm-hmm.
diversity. You know, giving to
Mm-hmm.
others. So I think just know that words have power, and your thoughts do create your reality. And literally, things happen to me so magical that you know, especially now work, I think it was so amplified because every week, you know, we meet and like it kind of, you know, stays with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I think you can create reality you want no matter where you are, you know, no matter where you come from, you're in food lines. If you really want to and you're passionate about and your intention is right, I think always ask why you're doing what you're doing. And if it's, you know, intention for the better good of others, I think there's a force that will make it happen for sure.
Yeah, there certainly is. And I mean, your father was a nuclear scientist and knew about quantum physics. You grew up understanding the power of thought and the energy behind thought and manifesting what it is that you want to create in the world. And I think a lot of people out there probably don't know about it or have lost sight of the fact of the power of words and the energy behind them, the emotion behind them, of really being able to create anything you want and feeling it too. It's that feeling behind the words that attracts a manifestation process.
For sure, you know, it's interesting because I think at the end of the day, it all comes down, right, to two emotions, if you dissect it, like love or fear. So a lot of times I would always question, especially now when you have kids, like time is the most valuable thing in our life, right?
Yeah.
So you always think like, okay, do I want to do it out of love or out of fear? So, you know, that's always a motivation behind everything, especially now, you know, after lockdowns, when you like reevaluate everything that you do and why you run around and do things so you shouldn't do, you know.
Right. So it's you know, in all of this, Eugenia, the process and growth and transformation, and now plugging all this into the projects that you're creating, is I'm hoping is going to really just accelerate you into a new phase, a new life journey that is going to be more fulfilling, and well, even more fulfilling, I should say, than before, but also bring you ease and contentment, you know, and joy and happiness, just doing what you love and inspiring others. Thank you so much for being with us today. You've just been an absolute joy. Where can we find you to find out more about your book, about the projects that you're working on? Where do we find you?
Well, my good friend Google made it really easy. Stalk anybody on any social media, but you know, usually I do have you know, my Instagram, usually Eugenia Kuzmina, and a lot of times, you know, girls would DM me and ask me like, oh, how do I become a model or things like that, and you know, if I can help with something, I try to, you know, to help in that sense.
Okay. And if we want to get the book, do we go to herstory.com or?
Yeah, I think it's herstory.com. You know, well, today we're doing a launch, so hopefully after it's going to be easier to find it online.
Okay, beautiful. Well, thank you. Good luck with the launch today. And I look forward to hearing more about it. And I'll be in touch with you very soon. And you've just been so generous with your time today. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye for now. See you soon.